I'm Greg Giuliano. I'm an executive coach, organizational change consultant, and author. I believe leaders have the power to shape the future and change people's lives. I also believe people who challenge the status quo and go beyond usual and ordinary are rare. They're willing to go to the edge and push farther, over and over again. When I find these ultra leaders, I love to talk with them. In each episode, I talk with ultra leaders to learn how they do what they do and how they keep growing as leaders. I promise you a full dose of ultra leadership from other ultra leaders just like you in every conversation. We're at the edge of another episode. Let's jump in. Welcome to another episode of Ultra Leadership. I'm Greg Giuliano. My guest today is Alice Yoo LeClair. Alice is the head of talent, culture, and performance at Ascendion, a leading provider of AI-first software engineering services. Prior to joining Ascendion, Alice was CHRO for the Financial and Professional Services Division at Euromoney Institutional Investor PLC, now Delignian. She's a progressive people leader who builds partnerships to achieve commercial success through targeted value creation and culture impact strategies that empower people. She works to optimize profitability and enable transformation for the business while balancing financial success and social responsibility. Alice is also a member at Chief, a private network of senior executive women helping other women to raise their leadership. She lives in my home state of New Jersey, where it's a beautiful day, and I'm thrilled to have you. Welcome, Alice.
Thank you so much, Greg. I'm excited to be here and to be in conversation with you.
I'm looking forward to it. And I just have to say, I love your new title versus your old title, because I'm all about, let's talk about people and culture, not humans as resources to be used. They're people to be engaged. So I love your new title. So I'm looking forward to talking with you about a little bit about that today. And I actually want to start there because you're the head of talent and people and culture. And a lot of transformation is about creating culture. In fact, I was just talking with somebody about culture yesterday, and I can't influence the whole culture at the company because I'm not the CEO. And I said, yeah, but you're the leader of a team and you can create a culture just around you on your team. And you can be a culture of one, how are you going to show up? So I'm curious, as you're leading transformation, a lot of it is about people and culture, right? That's the most important part of any transformation is how do we take care of our people and what's the culture we want to create in order to succeed at this transformation? So I'm curious, what's the biggest lesson that you've learned and that you're applying as you try to help your organization through transformation?
The biggest lesson is, well, first let me say I appreciate the thoughtful commentary, not only about my title, but also the real life example that you've provided about the struggle that the person you were speaking with was feeling. The biggest lesson I've learned from leading change is that you need to invest in the contributors of value. People who contribute value could be at any stage of their career. They could also be at any tenure with the organization. In order to invest in the contributors of value, it requires asking around and finding out from high quality people who's doing a remarkable job, not only for their colleagues and the client, but also for the culture. And when you find out those people who are first among equals, those people who have found a way to coexist with disruption and the unknown, meet them where they're at, discover what their intrinsic motivation is, and invest in them and invest in the things that they need. And when I say invest, I don't necessarily mean with financial means to an end. I mean in really getting closely aware to what it is that they feel is blocking them from being able to unlock even more effectiveness. And I'll say to the other side of the coin, for those who don't have the presence of mind to listen with intelligence and empathy when an organization is going through change, that's an opportunity for a graceful exit, because when the train has left the station and the transformation is in motion, people at all levels need to bring forward really high quality listening skills. And again, there needs to be intelligence with that. There needs to be empathy with that. And if they're going to proactively choose to not provide that, then there's probably a better fit for them outside of the organization.
Yeah. So there's so much in there. I could go all day on developing the capacity to coexist with disruption. I love the way that you talk about that. I'm probably going to steal that. I just want you to know that.
It's yours for the taking.
No
stealing required.
Love that, because especially folks who are longer tenured in an organization, when something changes, they're not good at coexisting with disruption. They had everything where they wanted it, and now you're touching their stuff and they're not happy with that. And so helping people when they're, you moved my stapler, they have that going on in their head. That's hard, reaching folks who are really have that kind of fixed mindset. But where I want to come back to is creating the conditions for people to create even more value. That's, I think, the role of leadership in that transformation is, how do I create the conditions where I'm unlocking people's skill and their talent and creating the space for them and the opportunity for them to create even more value as they find their place in the transformation.
I definitely have some views on that for leaders. The key, in my opinion, is to keep drawing yourself and your team back into the desired end state. And as you draw them back into that desired end state, meaning we're creating all of this change and disruption. Why? Remind me, because I've forgotten with all of the new policies and the new contacts and the new acronyms and the new value propositions. Oh my goodness, why? Well, at least I'll speak for the organization that I'm proud to be a part of, Ascendion. Our desired end state is to impact 1 billion lives through software and technology. And that impact channels through many different industries and many different locations, many different communities. So that creates meaning and purpose for us through change. It doesn't mean that we have less ambiguity in terms of what the future will bring. The point of keeping oneself centered on the desired end state is because that is something that is incredibly inclusive. It's also an open invitation for people to discover what is it in that desired end state that has meaning and purpose for you and what you do for the organization. So again, if we bring it back to Ascendion and we think about impacting 1 billion lives through the power of software and technology. And the Ascendion way of doing that, of course, is by engineering to the power of AI, meaning we move businesses, their clients, and their teams away from slow linear processes and traditional modernization upgrades, and we accelerate their objectives into flexible commercial models that align to people, processes, and outcomes. And so we do that. Why? To impact lives. Everything runs on software. If somebody wants to have a more equitable experience in attaining education opportunities, certification opportunities, upskilling opportunities, that will run on software. Entrepreneurial mindsets, seeking to create the next Uber or Amazon, that'll run on software. The healthcare provider who is supplying medications and ensuring that the health care and well-being is getting to recipients better, faster, more efficiently, that runs on software. And so the impact of 1 billion lives through software is where we recenter ourselves through what I just talked about. New this, change that, new this, change that. Why? Because we're in this to impact 1 billion lives. So as a leader, it becomes less about somebody's stage of life versus somebody else's stage of life. It becomes less about, well, I think the company should be doing this. Well, I think the company should be doing that. It becomes an elimination of, well, I'll do this, but only if you give me that. If you keep drawing people back to why the company exists in the first place and why and where in that existence change is imperative, then you're sharing in a story that affects everybody equally. And so that is where I get very precise when I'm talking to leaders. Keep drawing people into that desired end state. And then maybe as a sub bullet, I would say disruption is a difficult place. Let's acknowledge that. But it's also an opportunity to discover your inner Zen master, and people who look to you for leadership, they'll remember that for life. They'll remember the person who, through disruptive, transformative times, was a paragon for values-led leadership and compassionate, empathetic listening and desired outcomes across teams, leaders, and officers.
The operating system. So the operating system that runs the software. So for me, as a leader, there are applications, there are things that I have to do. There's, tasks that I have to perform, and there's skills that I need to develop. I think of those as the apps that I can use as a leader. But the operating system that you're describing for the human being who's a leader, the core of that is really empathy. That's the number one skill for successful transformation, is being able to show up with empathy to help people find their place in the transformation.
You're an ascender already, Greg, and you just don't know it. Deeply empathetic is one of our 4 core values. The other 3 being boldly optimistic, relentlessly curious, and an ally to clients and our people. So well done. And we look forward to having you join our talent constellation of ascenders.
I love all those words. It all resonates with me. So I am like ridiculously optimistic. It's all possibilities. We can make anything out of anything. So you spend a lot of time working with younger leaders. You're very young yourself, but when you're sharing advice with, early career folks joining your company, or somebody stepping into a leadership role, we want to reward somebody. They create tremendous value. And the way that we reward folks sometimes is we say, hey, you're great at what you do. Here's a team of people. If you're advising somebody, you're not just throwing them to the cold, go figure it out. You're advising someone they've just gotten a team. What's the advice that you find yourself sharing with them on repeat?
Number 1 is stand tall in the facts. Humans are really complicated, and that's okay. Humans are also opinionated. In the era of work that we currently live, those opinions can be very public. They can be forever on the internet. They can also take on a life of their own in your company's culture. But if you are a first-time people leader, your North Star is to stand tall in the facts. Bring people back to what are the facts of what happened, of what was said, of what the circumstances were, of the broader contextual nature of it. And also, when you stand tall in the facts, you are able to bring forward some of the most critical strategies that the organization is wrapping around its aspirations and ambitions, versus trying to create a subset of cultural norms and policies and processes. It's best to help the team find stability in things of a factual nature. The second thing that I would say is shift your financial outlook As a people leader, you're going to see your time run away and no longer be your own. And so it may be a new skill to look at the company's financials from what people want to what delivers the most value for the organization. That's not an easy thing. It comes with time, but that shift of the financial outlook is incredibly important when you are a leader of people because they'll have an unlimited number of ideas and um, and requests for how the financials of the organization should be directed. But again, if you stand tall in the facts, if you draw yourself back into the desired end state of the transformative era that the company is going through, and you help guide and teach your team to take a look at how the organization and its financial performance interlocks into a set of broader pictures, then what you're doing is you're not only equipping your team at an early stage of their career with balance sheet acumen and financial principles that will serve them for life, but you're also giving yourself an opportunity to become articulate in it and to become stronger in it and to become more verbal and fluent in it, which has huge benefit for people seeking to be leaders. And then the last thing I would say to this newly appointed people leader is to remember that mentorship has a new model. It's called exists anywhere and everywhere. Gone are the days where you should feel like you have to wait for your company to roll out a formalized, documented, policy bolted mentorship program. That is not going to scale. It's also not going to be revived in ways that maybe is intended if your company is going through significant change and transformation. It's a little different if you have been a brand in the marketplace for over 100 years, if you've got 100 years of financial performance under the belt and the outlook. But if you're something new in the space and you're differentiated and you're accelerating and your X factors include velocity, the opportunity to be mentored is something that new people leaders must remember. It's everywhere and anywhere. And the wonderful thing, as much as we may criticize and lambaste social media, and it's oftentimes for good reason, but the wonderful thing about social media is that you now have 24/7 access to some of the most successful leaders of capitalism, of psychology, of innovation and technology, anywhere and everywhere. Think about the traditional mentorship program. Could we grab a cup of coffee? Okay. Well, let's say you're grabbing a cup of coffee with, let's come up with a name. Let's say you're grabbing a cup of coffee with Satya Nadella. What are some of the things you would ask him? Chances are it's out there and published in multiple formats and multiple content sets what his views of 1, 2, 3 ABC are. And there you've got mentorship in the new model. Likewise, YouTube interviews, and it doesn't have to be a Satya Nadella. Let me clarify. It could be an influencer. It could be a elderly war veteran. It could be someone who has nothing to do with your industry at all. And I think this is one of the things I love about the new model of mentorship. Exists anywhere and everywhere. I've even been mentored. I'll be honest, years ago, I felt like I was being mentored in an interview because the insights and the articulated needs and strategic vision of this company officer that they were looking to solve for through the hiring of someone from the outside. I didn't realize it at the time, but I've so often referred back to those remarks that I realize that now I was being mentored, but it was in such an untraditional box that I didn't realize it at the time. And so I say that I can't emphasize that enough to people who are newly appointed leaders. Don't wait necessarily for that formalized company mentorship program. Feel free to go and explore anywhere and everywhere in terms of content and in terms of experiences where that mentorship may be discovered.
Amen. That was it right there, right? Don't wait, right? As much as your company cares about you, no one's going to work harder at your development and your career than you. And all those mentors are out there. So be proactive. Don't wait for, to get an email saying, we want you to be in this program. We want you to do that today, right? What do you want to start getting better at today? And who can help you? Go connect with them, whether it's a real person or whether it's someone online. Like all this stuff is out there. So much out there. I talk about, I've never met Seth Godin or Simon Sinek, but man, are they mentors to me, because I love, right? I just consume it all. And there are other, authors from, Marshall Goldsmith. I've never met him in person, but he's just a tremendous resource. So yes, there are folks out there that we can connect with, whether it's real or whether it's just we're followers of, we listen to anything they have to say and we incorporate it into our operating system as leaders. Man, this has been great. So I'm so grateful for this, because I think that you've shared some tremendous stuff with us today. I'm grateful for you. On behalf of your team, I know your team is grateful for you because of just who you are and how you show up. And I want to give you the last word today, and I'd love to end with gratitude. So I want to pose that as the last question for you today, Alice. What are you grateful for today?
Going to sound a little weird, but I'm okay with that. Today, I'm really grateful for relatability. If you were not able to relate to anything that came out of my mouth in the past half hour or so, this conversation probably would have gone wildly off the rails and incredibly awkward and just a lot of blinking at each other and absent head nodding. But instead, I'm so grateful that you were able to relate to my point of view and to the things that I aspire for my team, for Ascendion, and for our industry and the communities in which we serve. So today I am most grateful for relatability.
Awesome. So again, thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate it. I've learned today. I got some terms that I'm going to steal and use. I will borrow and I will cite my sources. And I want to thank everybody for listening in. If you're enjoying our podcast, please tell your friends. We put out a weekly newsletter on LinkedIn, so you can find us on LinkedIn and get our newsletter that relates to all the topics that we talked about today. And you can find us, on our YouTube channel, where all of our podcasts, we're on a number of platforms, but we're also on YouTube, and we have additional content there that comes out weekly, all in service of helping leaders get better at the important work of leading other people. It's a privilege and a great responsibility to lead. And so we want to do a weekend to help great leaders become even better leaders. So thank you to you for listening. Thanks again, Alice, for joining us. Until next time, please keep going to your edge, pushing farther, and keep working on getting better. Let's help one another do that.
If you're enjoying Ultra Leadership, please take a minute and give us a review wherever you find your podcasts. And please stay in touch. Sign up for our Ultra Leadership newsletter at ultraleadership.com. Now, before you jump to your next meeting, I invite you to reflect on what you heard today. What stood out for you? What insight might you want to incorporate into your leadership practice? Until next time, remember, as a leader, you always have the power to shape the future and change lives. So go to the edge and push farther. Thanks for listening.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.